Hello there, Sarah from 17 once again. This is The Witcher 2 Dark Mode Difficulty video walkthrough. We're in Chapter 1, this is the Malena side quest. This is another pretty tough one, especially if you're new and early in the game. This is the one of the parts that made me realise that there are certain aspects to how the game plays that I'll never agree with. And that is primarily the notion of here's 30 enemies that can one-shot you, and you have to hit them all a few times to kill even one. And it's one of those moments where you realise that you really need to get better equipment, or you need to use different tactics, and that is exactly what I did on my first playthrough. I ended up clearing this entire cave using bombs, which you're not going to see, I don't think, in this playthrough, but I could be wrong. I do have 16 of them, so I can't remember what I decided to do. One good strategy is to use Quen to keep a defensive barrier up, because they do so much damage and there's so many of them, so you can die ridiculously fast. But we'll see what I did. It's been a while since I recorded it. Stopping off here at the shop, checking out what he's got. One of the things I didn't understand too much on this game were the runes. The runes, for people that don't know, are stones that you can put onto your sword to give you passive abilities with them. You know, you can make it so that you can set people on fire, you can buff your damage, you can buff your sign damage, you can do a lot of things, but they seemed so rare to find that it made me wonder just how important they were in the grand scheme of things, because you start the game with a shit ton, but in the course of the game you barely find any. You get a couple of reward ones, and you probably can find a handful, but they seem to be one of the rarest commodities on the game. And because your weapons keep getting better in each chapter, it's always that notion of what's the point in wasting them until I've got, you know, the last sword I'm going to use. And I suppose it's like anything else. They're good, but they're not game changers. So you can get that added bonus on your weapons, you know, the 5% damage increase. You know, have 2 of those, that's 10% damage increase on a weapon. It can make any weapon probably viable. But I just never really saw that much importance in them. Which is a shame, because upgrade systems and things I find fascinating, and I really wanted it to be detailed. And oh, as you can see, I am going to be using bombs, and that right there was a stun to kill, so that's a really important move. And that was one hit from a Neca warrior that took a lot of my life. Wow, what was that, 80%? So yeah, this fight, as you can see, is not going as well as perhaps it could be, but I will be able to salvage it, because that's one of the best things about the game. Even in a really bad situation, you can still win, thanks to AI and bombs. Mainly bombs. And I haven't even cast Quen, which is just to show how much... Oh, there we go. I thought it was coming. But you'll notice I've got a sign up at the top now that's counting down, and you'll also notice my Vigor does not regenerate. That is two of the side effects, well, one of the side effects of Quen. If I get hit by anything, my life will not be affected, but you'll notice the sign will disappear. And a lot of people think, oh, I've got a minute of it, and it goes away, and they wonder how they died. Well, you died because the Quen had gone. It had nullified the damage and then nullified the spell, so you need to recast. As long as you're aware of that, Quen is the most overpowered ability in the game. And because of that nature, I will not be using it that much. But there is the first phase. Extremely messy thanks to that massive critical I received, but I can save now and we can carry on through the cave. There's a handful of enemies left, but there's nowhere near the same amount we just killed. You know, when I first saw this room, oh, here we go. That could have been a kill hit if I wasn't careful. But the first time I was in this room, it just didn't seem possible at all. There were so many enemies, and the room doesn't have that much maneuverability to it, and you can easily get funneled and trapped because there's so much clipping happening. There's nothing worse than trying to get away from enemies and rolling into more enemies or walls and essentially getting free hits and beaten up because there was nowhere you could have gone to not get hit. And your only other alternative is to block, and you only get 2 blocks before it starts damaging your life, and that's even if you have that ability. So you know, there's a lot of interesting nuance to the system that is the combat, but all of them flawed. But the cool thing about this place is you're going to get a ton of Neca bits, so you can You know, go outside, wait a couple of hours, come back in and kill them all again, and just farm these enemies and get a ton of stuff, sell it, get a ton of money, if that's, you know, your prerogative. But once again, not the kind of thing you're going to see me doing, not the kind of thing I generally do. But I was just checking my YouTube and I got a comment on a Dark Souls video about honor, which is always a funny topic with me because it doesn't exist, and anybody who thinks it does is a fool. And it's just 2 years too late, man. You know, any honor that Dark Souls had died in those first months when everybody realized what was the cheapest way to win, what was the most overpowered setups, and started just destroying the PvP scene. Like, the arena could have salvaged some kind of honor. It could have made it so that the multiplayer was as balanced as it was ever going to be in an incredibly unbalanced system. And nobody uses the arena because everybody who went there took those try-hard builds that nobody likes and did nothing but play with them. You know, I came up against a guy who had every buff in the game on a pike. What a beautiful fight. And when he started to lose, he would run away. He would just do enough damage to get like the crown above his head, and then he would run away and hide. And that's all he would do. You know, he would rather draw by running away and hiding than he would lose, because he was just obsessed with this, you know, this kill-death ratio notion. And everybody expected the arena to be this place where people went to have fun and try out silly builds and have some really cool, you know, GG kind of fights. That is not what the arena was. You know, it just became full of builds that are completely ostracized on forums. And I'm not saying that, you know, there's anything wrong with the builds, because it's generally the player using them that does stupid stuff. But a good example would be when you run into a hacker in the arena. So someone who you can't even kill, which you can still win because you don't need to kill in the arena. You just need to deal damage, and I assume, you know, you can do enough damage to win. But even then it's going to be tough, because if he's got hacked life, he could have a hacked weapon, he could have hacked anything. You know, it's just so funny to hear people lecture on honor, and I've done it myself. You know, everybody's guilty of it, but all it says to me is that that person's new. Because anybody who plays Dark Souls long enough learns that there's just no place for that, you know. Everybody can want this better, you know, etiquette, this better environment for PvP, but there's no consensus, nor will there ever be consensus, and thus there will never be this dream-like bullshit notion of honor. So instead you just get a bunch of new players who, you know, aspire to be knights of the fucking realm, who like to bow, and then they get pissed off when somebody backstabs them during a bow. You know, we've all been there, but what do you expect? You've invaded somebody's world, you've bowed, expecting it to be this courteous thing, and he's run up behind you and done everything he can to try and kill you, and then you're gonna lecture him on how he should fight in his world, you know? We've all been in that spot, and we've all believed in that notion, but opinions change. You know, they do change. People change the mind, people mature, people get a better concept of what the game is. And there is one unifying truth about Dark Souls. It was never meant to be a fair fighting game. It wasn't. Or there just would not be things that exist in the game. It was never intended to be that. And as long as people try and get that, there will always be disagreements on what that is. It's just like anything else. Which is why honor should stick to arranged fights between friends, because they're the only people that are going to honor your wishes, and anything else is just retarded. But people on the internet are stupid, and will remain stupid, and thus I will mute them. Because I have a fantastic new button to get rid of ignorance. But thank you for watching, guys, and as always, you take care now.